Today I'm going to beat Pokemon Platinum with only the Empoleon-line. This is the third episode in my Pokemon Platinum series, so if you haven't seen the first two, I would recommend watching them before this one, because there are going to be spoilers for those videos here. Also, playthrough rules can be found in the description. Now, let's talk about the water starter. Contrasting it with the other two, it is the only special attacker. I actually like the fact that these three starters each fill their own niche. Torterra is physical, Infernape is mixed, and Empoleon is special. Of course, today I am starting as a Piplup and evolving throughout the playthrough, so its starting base stats are 53 HP, 51 attack, 53 defense, 61 special attack, 56 special defense, and 40 speed. It has a medium slow growth rate like all other starter Pokemon, and its ability is Torrent, which boosts the power of water type moves by 50% when it has equal to or less than 1/3 of its maximum HP. Of course, for this playthrough, the rival is going to be using Torterra. That said, as a water type, Piplup is going to have ice moves, so later into the game my coverage moves are going to manage this thing without an issue. Before we talk about the move pool, I just want to say the first rival battle was very close. I survived with only 2 hit points remaining. Okay, now let's talk about the moves. Piplup starts with Pound and Growl. Through level up, it gets access to Bubble, Water Sport, Peck, Bubble Beam, Bide, Fury Attack, Brine, Whirlpool, Mist, Drill Peck, and Hydro Pump. Of these moves, I think Brine and Drill Peck will be the most useful. It's nice to have the flying type coverage, even though Piplup is based on a penguin, which are obviously flightless birds. Through TM and HM, we get some decent coverage moves: Ice Beam, Dig, Brick Break, Rock Tomb, Aerial Ace, strangely Grass Knot, and then of course Surf and Waterfall for same type attack bonus damage. I'm mentioning Water Pulse specifically because it is physical, and that will be relevant later on, so just hang on to that thought. As a Catch My HM users, you might have questions about my Piplup's nickname. It is named this after my video editor, Sean, who has been doing so much work tirelessly over the last 2 months. Since mid-October, things have been very busy for us trying to get all of this content ready for you. If I didn't have Sean's support, it wouldn't be possible for me to do what I currently do on the channel, so thank you, Sean. You really do make this possible. Also, if anyone is worried about me and Sean not getting a break after all of this work, don't worry. Starting on December 22nd, both of us went on vacation. That being said, my vacation is going to look like doing a lot of programming, trying to get things ready for next year. Yeah, if this wasn't my job, it would be what I would do in my spare time anyways. I'm just very passionate about what I do, so yeah, when I go on vacation, it usually just means work that isn't directly related to producing a finished video. The rival outside of Jubilife City is not an issue for Piplup. I'm level 11 by this point, and I have access to Bubble, which of course is a special move. I use it to 3-shot the Starly. Next is Turtwig, and it can set up its defense with Withdraw, but then I can just use Bubble, and even though it's resisted, it still does alright damage, I guess. Plus I used Growl, so the Turtwig has no way to raise its attack stat, and it does so little damage when it actually does attack. I passed through Orbur Gate, this time training along the way. You are going to see me fight a lot of optional trainers in the earliest portions of this run. The reason is simple: the second gym leader is Gardenia, and I need a solution for her. While I will have access to super effective damage using Peck, it is only base 35 power, and I don't have the same type attack bonus. As a result, I am very worried about her Roserade. I continue this training in the gym, fighting both of the optional trainers here. At this point, Piplup is level 15, and you will note that it has not evolved yet. Turtwig evolves at level 18, Chimchar evolves at level 14, and Piplup is placed right in the middle of them, evolving at level 16, which is kind of the standard evolution level for most starters. I don't get there before Rourke, but it really shouldn't matter. His first Pokemon is Geodude. I go for Bubble, and I get the 1-hit as expected. This levels Piplup up to 16, so it's going to evolve after the battle. Then he sends in Onix, and of course this one is also going to be a 1-hit because it's taking 4 times damage. Last is Cranidos, and it isn't going to take as much damage because it's a mono rock type. It's faster than Piplup using Pursuit, which doesn't do very much, and then Bubble does more than half. Rourke uses a potion, wasting some time. I take it back down to orange health. It goes for Headbutt, its most powerful move, but it doesn't have anywhere near enough damage to knock Piplup out, so I finish it on the next turn. Following the battle, my starter evolves into a Prinplup, and I seriously consider pressing B, because from here the evolutionary line really goes downhill aesthetically. On my way back through Oreburgh Gate, I catch myself a Psyduck, which is my last HM user, and then I proceed north of Jubilife City. In the Ravaged Path, I take my time picking up the TM for Rock Tomb, which I teach in the place of Growl. My moveset continues getting better as I face the second Galactic Grunt in the Floroma Meadow. Prinplup levels up to 19 and can learn Bubble Beam in the place of Bubble. Victory here gives me access to the Valley Windworks, and with it comes the challenging battle against Commander Mars. Rock Tomb gives me a theoretical counter to the Zubat, but I don't have enough attack to knock it out in one hit. It goes for Bite and I finish it on the next turn. Purugly is next. It is counterintuitively very fast, plus it loves to go for Fake Out on the first turn, causing a flinch. This allows it to attack 2 turns in a row, leaving me with half health before my first Bubble Beam hits. It does less than half. Alright, that's not very good. Maybe I just got a bad roll and I'll finish it in the next turn. That being said, its scratches aren't doing very much damage, and I think I would survive one more. But I don't need to because Bubble Beam gets a better roll. In Eterna Forest, I have a very close call in the mandatory double battle. This is because the Pachirisu caused paralysis, but I'm lucky to make it through this fight without having to reset. I did not save before it, and maybe I should start doing a save before this battle just because the status condition is very likely. That said, saving in Generation 4 does take a lot of time. Outside of the forest, I'm going to draw your attention to a hidden super potion, which is over here where there is no grass. And with it picked up, the next destination is the grass gym. Inside, all of the trainers are mandatory. The first last is a Cherubi and Rosalia. Using Peck, I'm not able to one-shot her lead, allowing it to set up Leech Seed. Starting in Generation 2, this status drains 1/8 of the Pokemon's maximum health per turn. So I take decent damage before knocking out her lead, then she sends in Rosalia. It uses Mega Drain and compounds this with Leech Seed, draining so much health and healing a lot in one turn. I really didn't think I was going to knock it out on the next turn, and I was correct. It survives with a tiny amount of health. I did not save before this fight, so I'm going to have to black out if I lose. But the Rosalia just uses Poison Sting, so my water type survives and wins on the next turn. I realized that this gym is going to be slow going, so I backtracked to the Mart to buy some super potions, just so I can heal as I proceed through the mandatory trainers. The next one is an Aroma Lady. She has 3 Badoo. They're level 15, 16, and 17. I one-hit the first 2, but fail on the third one, getting paralyzed in the process. I remember to heal the status condition, but I forgot to fully heal my health before going up against the next Aroma Lady. She has a Rosalia. This one inflicts paralysis once again, and as I fail to move due to the status condition, it uses Mega Drain, healing itself. I probably should be using a Cherry Berry in all of these fights to remove the possibility for the status condition. I'll remember that for future playthroughs if a Pokemon has the potential to struggle against grass types. When Prinplup goes to low health, once again, like in the first fight, the Rosalia chooses Poison Sting. I'm really not sure why it's doing this. Why wouldn't it just use Mega Drain to get the knockout? Perhaps some of you have good insight into the Generation 4 AI. In that case, let me know why it seems like they're prioritizing this move when I'm on low health. Or is this just me being a human seeing a pattern in chaos? I really don't think Prinplup is ready, but I wanted to give it a try just to see how difficult Gardenia is going to be. First is Turtwig. Peck has the highest effective power, so I use it and it does less than half. Plus the grass type then sets up Reflect. This field effect is not accounted for on my overlay at the current time, and because of it I really should be using Bubble Beam now, but instead I go for Peck and it does very little damage. I continue making the wrong choice. Turtwig does half with Razor Leaf, and it didn't get a critical hit. Gardenia uses a super potion, fully healing her lead. I continue using Peck, and the next Razor Leaf gets a crit and Prinplup goes down. I didn't even make it to her second Pokemon. There are 3 fissures right outside of the city that I can immediately fight for some fast experience. After that I return to the forest fighting the 4 optional trainers that I skipped on my first pass through here. The experience from this brings Prinplup up to level 26, and I figured this wasn't enough, so I continued to grind with my eye on level 28. The thing is, this training is taking a long time, so eventually I decided to go back to the gym, upgrade Pound to return, and see how my water type is able to do 3 levels higher. Against the Turtwig I go for Peck. It does slightly less than half. Of course it sets up Reflect, and then I use Bubble Beam, which does about the same amount as Peck, taking it to red health. Its non-crit Razor Leaf does less than half. She uses a super potion. Bubble Beam gets a critical hit, and I knock it out. Okay, so I made it to the second Pokemon, but it was not that convincing. I go for Peck. It's doing very little damage. That means I am not going to make it to her ace. So back to training it is. I'm going to grind until I guess level 30, because it seems like I need a significant amount of levels. I skip skipped quite a few trainers on the previous route, which in retrospect was a very bad decision, so I'm going to go back and face them now. During this training, I reflected on how rare candies impact a Pokemon's final performance. In Generation 1, you get your first 2 rare candies before you face the second gym leader or the second rival. If you take on the rival, you can actually get your 3rd candy before you face Misty. This can really help a Pokemon that struggles against the early gyms, but not against the later gyms. One of the reasons the Brock split influences the results so much is that there are no rare candies before him. Imagine if there was 1 or 2, then Pokemon would have to do less training in Viridian Forest, and that split overall would just be less impactful. Of course, it would still determine results, but it wouldn't impact a Pokemon like Gyarados nearly as much. And yes, of course, I'm talking about Gyarados in Pokemon Yellow, where it only knows Tackle. In Red and Blue, it has Hydro Pump and Dragon Rage, so it's totally fine against Brock. In Generation 2, the rare candies come much later into the game, but overall the trainers are just not that hard. Even if your Pokemon struggles against someone like Whitney or Morty, there are always ways to squeeze out a win. Perhaps a headbutt flinch, maybe the Quick Claw. You can also use Mud Slap or even Flash for accuracy lowering tactics. Because of this, you don't really want to use your rare candies until you reach the League or Red even. In Emerald, things are a little bit different. You want to save your rare candies for later in the game just because of how difficult Steven's Stone is. I've played around with using rare candies earlier on into the run. I think the earliest possible moment that makes sense to use them, at least in a first playthrough, would be in front of Tate and Liza, especially if you know your Pokemon is going to struggle and that it does have an answer once it levels up. In Platinum, all of this is very different because of the sheer number of rare candies you get access to. That said, I haven't even found a single one yet in this playthrough. In my Infernape playthrough, which I did yesterday, I collected a total of 17. Imagine if I had access to 2 or 3 of those right now with Prinplup. This training would go a lot faster, and the Grass-type gym would be less of a hurdle. What this means is that Pokemon that struggle against early gym leaders in Platinum will likely get worse results when compared with Pokemon that struggle against later gym leaders or Elite Four members. So at this point in the run where I finally get to level 30 just before 50 minutes on the clock, I was fairly convinced that the Water-type starter was going to get the worst final time of the 3. Maybe, just maybe now, I am over-leveled enough to defeat the Grass-type specialist. Turtwig is first, I go for Return, it does more than half. Her lead sets up Reflect. I decided to go for another hit with Return, but it just barely doesn't knock it out. She heals, I continue using the normal type move, and eventually finish it off. Next is Cherrim. Turtwig did set up Sunny Day, so it transforms into its Sunny form. Note, it doesn't have different stats in this form, with the exception of Legends Arceus, but that of course isn't relevant today. I figured here that Return would too hit, but it just barely isn't. She uses another Super Potion, it transforms back when the sun disappears, and I am able to knock it out. So, I've made it to the Roserade. However, with only orange health remaining, and the fact that Roserade still has 2 more speed, it moves first with Magical Leaf, and that's another loss. I was really hoping that it wouldn't come to this. I think I need to level up to 33 to gain access to the move Brine. This move was introduced in Generation 4, so I had to look up what it does. It inflicts damage, and its power is doubled to 130 when the target is at or below 50% health. Immediately I thought this would be useful to play around Reflect, but that's really only the case with the Turtwig. After that, I'm probably just going to have to spam Brine anyways because Reflect will be on the field. And if Return is doing more than half damage when the screen is up, why would I use a water move? You might have another question, which is, can I boost the power of any of my moves using held items? And the answer is essentially no. All of the plates are available later into the game, the Silk Scarf requires the Game Corner, and the Mystic Water is in Pastoria City. The Sharp Beak is held by Wild Fearow and Doduo, but I can't catch any of those yet. You might think Wild Geodude would hold the Hardstone, but no, that's not how it works. I'd have to catch an Aron, Nosepass, or Corsola. Finally, my Prinplup reaches level 33. I teach Brine in the place of Bubble Beam. Now please, let this be enough. I use Return on the Turtwig, hoping that it will one-shot. Remember, this move has been increasing in power as I have trained. It's still not, and the Turtwig sets up Reflect. I continue using Return, which is objectively a bad choice, and while I do knock it out, I have half health left over, and the rest of the fight is not possible from here. Instead of training, I attempted the fight again because I am forgetting one key factor. Once my Prinplup hits 1/3 health, it's gonna get 50% more damage using the move Brine. I finished the Turtwig off without taking any damage. She sends in Cherrim. I just go for Brine on it because it has lower special defense, and I do about half. The grass type sets up a useless safeguard. I use brine one more time and knock it out. Okay, so I made it to the Roserade with full health. This is fantastic. Because there is no screen in place, return is the best option. It does more than half, but Roserade heals just above that threshold using a citrus berry. It attempts to paralyze with stun spore, but I have a cherry berry and also it misses. And now my next return has enough damage to finish her ace off. I can't believe it, I had a clean sweep against her. She actually dealt no damage to Prinplup that entire fight. Doing a bit of a post-mortem on that battle, of course it would have been possible to defeat her earlier if I had realized that using special moves in combination with Torrent was likely the correct play. After all, Bubble Beam does have the same base power as Brine. The next major battle is against Commander Jupiter, but I'm so overleveled at this point that she isn't a threat. As I journey through the next section of the game on my way to Hearthome City, I want to mention a couple of glitches that you've probably caught on my overlay. Number 1, or I should say TMO1, is Whirlpool? No, that's just incorrect. In its place should be the move Defog instead. I caught this while filming a later video in the series, so for today, just remember Whirlpool actually means Defog. Another error is that some of the moves have their modern day base powers. Hydro Pump and Blizzard should have a base power of 120 in Generation 4, and Ice Beam and Surf should have a base power of 95. If I was you, I would be wondering if this is going to mess up my effective power calculations with my moves in the bottom center when I learn these two moves. However, that's not actually going to be an issue with this playthrough, because once Prinplup reaches level 36, it evolves into Empoleon. Now, I have to draw your attention to its move pool. This evolution brings with it a new move, which is Aqua Jet. I figured I should teach this in the place of Peck because it's pretty useless at this point. But this isn't the only benefit of the evolution. Obviously, higher base stats are great. Empoleon has 84 HP, 86 attack, 88 defense, 111 special attack, 101 special defense, and 60 speed. Now, while it is a special attacker, its move pool also expanded to include a very interesting level up move. At level 11, Empoleon gets access to Swords Dance. When I began planning this video, I looked at Empoleon's set and I was like, great, I'm gonna get Swords Dance, and I'll be able to beat Gardenia using it. Turns out, of the evolutionary line, Empoleon is the only Pokemon that gets access to this move. Because of that, I have planned an exclusively physical set for it. After only one use of Swords Dance, it will have a much higher attack stat when compared with its special attack stat, and utilizing Waterfall, it will have a physical same type attack bonus move. Okay, so with all that explanation out of the way, now let's take on the third gym leader, Fantina. For this fight, I have equipped a Chesto Berry, just in case the Haunter uses Hypnosis. For first Pokemon is Duskull, I go for Brine, and it knocks it out in one hit. Alright, so it's not going to be able to hit me with Will-O-Wisp. She sends in her ace next. Brine does more than half, it restores health with a Citrus Berry, and then uses Confuse Ray. Empoleon hits itself, the Mismagius does no Magical Leaf, but look at how much damage it does. It's like basically nothing. I don't hit myself on the next turn, and now her only Pokemon is Haunter. I do hit myself here a little bit, it's kind of annoying, but in the end, Brine just one-shots, so the third gym was much easier than the second. Following this battle, I have to take on Barry. His first Pokemon, Staravia, has Intimidate, so it lowers my attack stat. Brine one-shots, and then he sends in Grotle. It does not yet have the ground typing, so I figured Return might do more to it, but it sets up its defense, so eventually I use Brine and knock it out. Return 2 hits the Buizel, and I one-shot the following Ponyta. From here, things are going to start to accelerate for the water starter. Between Salacion Town and Veilstone City, there is nothing useful for Empoleon to pick up other than one rare candy. You will notice that I don't have Earthquake on my set, and I definitely could by this point, but I was holding off on it intentionally. I want Rock Tomb for when I face Crash or Wake, just so I have super effective damage against his Gyarados. Of course, the next destination is Maylene's gym, because out of all of the games in the series so far, Platinum is definitely the most linear. That is, in terms of the order of events. The map is not linear at all. This game actually requires the most backtracking, I think, out of any Pokemon game in the series. Okay, so now let's take on the Fighting type specialist. First is Meditite, it fakes out my Empoleon, and then I hit with Brine, knocking it out in a single hit. Next is Machoke. I don't have Aerial Ace yet, but Brine is more than enough to defeat it. Last is Lucario. Now it is super effective against me, but I wasn't worried because Empoleon is decently bulky. I shrug off its hits and finish it with 2 uses of Brine. With my current experience of the first 4 gym leaders, I think that Maylene is overall the easiest. Maybe she's a distant relative of Bruno. Okay, so just a little while ago I made fun of Empoleon's design, and overall I really didn't like this thing when I first saw it, but as I've leveled up in real life and got older, its design has grown on me a little bit. I think that is in no small part because I caught one of these things fully evolved in Legends Arceus, and of course I immediately put it on my team, and it was a great Pokemon to have. In the next section of the game, Empoleon is going to get some major upgrades. As I head towards Pastoria City, I ensure that I pick up a heart scale. Then just a little bit north of this hidden item is this boulder, which I can smash, and pick up the TM for Aerial Ace, which is a physical flying type move that bypasses accuracy checks. In Pastoria City, I talk to the move reminder, and of course, now I'm going to learn Swords Dance in the place of Aqua Jet. Also, I do know that Swords Dance is taking up 2 lines in my moveset. It looks really ugly. I'm going to correct that very shortly. First, I teach Aerial Ace in the place of Brine. After all, I want to get rid of my water moves now, because Crasher Wake is the next gym leader. I shouldn't get ahead of myself though, because first I have to defeat the rival. While his first Pokemon does have Intimidate, this doesn't matter anymore because I can just take my time here, setting up Swords Dance, and then I can begin my sweep. Rock Tomb knocks his lead out, he sends in Grotle next, but I have super effective damage with Aerial Ace. Continuing to use the flying type move, I knock out the Ponyta, as well as the Buizel, and take an easy victory. So now, it's time for the 5th gym leader. Crasher Wake's first Pokemon is Gyarados. The thing is, it can't really do anything to me with its moveset, Waterfall, Brine, Bite, and Twister. This gives me free setup to +5 attack, and then I use Return to knock it out. I guess I could have had Earthquake in the place of Rock Tomb earlier on. Quagsire's next, Return 1-hits it, and of course, the same is true for Floatzel. In Celestic Town, I have to go up against Cyrus, and it's not a hard fight at all after I get set up against his Sneasel. By the way, that Dark Ice type might be one of the most improved Pokemon from Generation 2 and 3 into Generation 4. The physical special split really helped it. Winning this battle gives me access to Surf, but I don't want to teach it to Empoleon because, like someone with commitment issues, I want to keep my set purely physical. In the Great Marsh, I pick up the rare Candy, but I am considering skipping this in playthroughs where I'm very confident with the Pokemon I'm using. The time investment to obtain it here is about 30 seconds, and overall the mud is just really frustrating. I don't know why Game Freak thought this was a good game mechanic. Like, yes, it does build immersion, so much so that I am stuck in it. The rival battle in Candice City is next. Essentially, it's just the same strategy as before, set up with Swords Dance and then sweep his team. With +3 attack, I'm able to do this very easily. So now let's face Byron. As this fight starts, I will note the fact that I have Dig on my set and not Earthquake. I picked this TM up as I went south from Veilstone City. It's available in a little cave. At this point in the run, I had thought a lot about the rare candy in the Great Marsh, and I didn't want to go into the cave to pick up Earthquake and the rare candy because I think that place takes even more time. I figured with Swords Dance, Dig is just going to be enough damage against all of these steel types, and in this case, I was right. Empoleon crushes its way through Commander Saturn as well as Commander Mars, and then I head north towards Snowpoint City. On my way, I level up to 52, and here, Empoleon learns Drill Peck in the place of Aerial Ace. After arriving, I fly back to Orberg City because I want to go to the gate so that I can smash this rock and go to the basement floor. Walking south from the stairs, I can use Surf, go to the left, and pick up the TM for Brick Break. Right now, I'm going to teach this in the place of Return in preparation for Candice. Sneasel is first. It gives me a free opportunity to set up with Swords Dance, and after only 1 boost, I go for Brick Break, knocking her lead out. Next, she sends in Piloswine. It is also a 1-hit, and so is the following Abomasnow. Okay, so I've made it to her ace, Frostlass. I can't use Brick Break here because it is part Ghost type, but Drill Peck is going to be enough. I want to mention here Frostlass's ability, which is Snow Cloak. Whenever the weather is hail, any move that you use against it will have its accuracy modified by a factor of 4/5, essentially decreasing the accuracy by 20%. At this stage in development, my overlay is not factoring this in, but it is now factoring in Frostlass's double team. It takes Empoleon a while to hit with Drill Peck. When it does, it just barely isn't enough. This doesn't matter though, it's just a little bit of wasted time. Eventually I hit with a second Drill Peck, and with that Candice is defeated. At the time of recording, I didn't realize that what I did next was a mistake, but it definitely just wastes time. South of Snowpoint City, past the blizzard area, is this rock climb wall, which you can only scale once you have the 7th badge. I'm backtracking here because on top of the ledge, I can pick up the TM for Ice Beam. Now this is a mistake because I'm not going to end up using this move once in this playthrough, but I picked it up just to be overly safe. After all, Cynthia's ace is a Garchomp and Ice Beam does 4 times damage to it. Things have been straightforward since obtaining Swords Dance, but that isn't the case against Cyrus in the Veilstone building. I spent too much time setting up here, allowing the Sneasel to use Screech twice against me, lowering my defense stat. His falling Crobat is very fast, so it's able to use Supersonic, confusing Empoleon. Confusion damage is calculated using your Pokemon's attack against its own defense. In this case, that is 375 attack against 43 defense, so the self-inflicted damage takes Empoleon from green health down to red. Crobat does a small amount of damage with Bite, and Empoleon finishes itself off. In the next battle I played more conservatively, setting up only once. I still get confused here, but I'm not dealing as much damage to myself. Plus, eventually it expires, and I knock the Crobat out with uses of Drill Peck. Last is Honchkrow, and I crit with Drill Peck, knocking it out in one hit. For a casual player, there is a lot that occurs over the next section of the game, but now being 3 episodes deep into this series, I'm starting to realize just how little there is to narrate between that Cyrus battle we just watched and the next one coming up in the Distortion world. I assumed that I'd be fine in this fight using Swords Dance. Also, Brick Break is super effective against the Houndoom, and I didn't expect Flamethrower to do very much because it is neutral. That said, Flamethrower burns me. Does this move have like an increased chance to burn in Generation 4? I feel like I've been getting very unlucky with it. I did look it up, and no, it does not have an increased chance to burn. I tried again, and look at that, the Houndoom burns me right away with Flamethrower. Very frustrating. I finish his lead off, move on to the Gyarados, it uses Earthquake, gets a critical hit, and knocks Empoleon out. At the start of this series, people told me Cyrus is difficult in this battle, and apparently they were right. That said, I think I can just make this fight trivial by using a bunch of rare candies. I have a total of 13, and I'm going to use 12 to go up to level 70. I'm sure what you're expecting now is a simple victory over Cyrus, and in this case it actually isn't. I can't believe it, but after an Intimidate with only +1, my level 70 Empoleon is not able to one-hit the Gyarados. The following Honchkrow also survives one of my attacks, but the Weavile doesn't. Last is Crobat, it does a little bit of damage with Air Slash, I take it to orange health, but then it confuses me, Empoleon hits itself twice in a row, and then Air Slash causes a flinch, and yes, Cyrus does defeat me. That is incredibly surprising. The Houndoom burns me in the next fight. My current path does not have me collecting any Rost berries in the playthrough, but I probably should just for this battle. I tried to win with the status condition, but it doesn't end up working out. In the third fight against him at level 70, I have taught Rock Slide in the place of Drill Peck. After all, I can get the Flying type move back whenever I want using the move Reminder. With a Rock type move, I defeat Cyrus's Crobat, and that's a wrap for this difficult battle. And there is potentially another difficult one right away, because next I have to face Volkner. This first battle is the perfect proof as to why saving time skipping the Earthquake TM was just a terrible idea. Number 1, Earthquake could have given me a one-hit on the Houndoom at the beginning of the previous battle, and paired with Rock Slide, Cyrus would have been much easier. I probably wouldn't have needed to set up. In this case, the first Jolteon paralyzed me using my Cherry Berry, so I don't have one for the Raichu, and when I knock it out using Dig, Static activates, causing paralysis. Now that I'm slow, the Luxray hits with Thunderfang, doing so much because of a crit. While I do go underground to use Dig, Paralysis activates, I don't actually get to attack, and there's no accuracy bypass glitch in Generation 4 like there is in Generation 1, so Empoleon gets knocked out on the next turn. The reason the Jolteon paralyzed me is because I tried to set up against it. This is obviously just a mistake. I should be going for Dig right away to knock it out. I could set up on the Raichu because it has no way to paralyze other than with Static. But I was thinking that I'm over-leveled, and I'm probably a little bit too addicted to Swords Dance at this point. Dig one-hits the Raichu, Luxray is next. Dig does not one-hit it though. Okay, so maybe one Swords Dance would have been the safer play. Due to a healing item, it gets one more attack in, leaving me with orange health for the final Pokemon Electivire. This thing also has an awesome intro animation. I'm wondering if now those are the Pokeball seals. I'm sure people have let me know in the comments if that's what they are. Now, if I gave you a choice between Electivire and Luxray, which one do you think has more HP and defense? I would definitely have said Electivire, but in fact the answer is Luxray. Because of that, Dig does enough damage, Electivire faints, and I've won against Volkner. Before starting the Elite Four, I want to make some moveset updates. I teach Waterfall in the place of Dig, and then I go back to the move reminders so that I can get Drill Peck instead of Rock Slide. This flying type move is more accurate, and it's going to be better against Aaron. There's 2 items that I want to collect as well. I go back to Route 215 to pick up the Fist Plate, and then after clearing Victory Road, I can grab the Sky Plate just south of the left-hand sculpture. With all of that completed, I head up the waterfall, and now it is time to face the rival one last time. His lead is always the Staraptor, and by this point it does know the move Close Combat. As a result, I am not going to get unlimited setup here. It's doing just over a quarter every time it attacks me, so I set up twice and then I decide to knock it out using Waterfall. Torterra is next. I can use Drill Peck against it for a 1-hit, and of course this move continues being excellent against the following Heracross. From there, this fight is much easier. I one-shot the Floatzel, Snorlax is next, Brick Break gets the job done, and I polish off the Rapidash, and with that, Empoleon is ready for the league. Aaron is the first league member. He is a bug-type specialist. By the way, in my first playthrough of Platinum, I really struggled against his Yanmega, specifically because of its speed boost ability. All of my Pokemon were very underleveled, and by the time it was moving faster than all my team members, it would just sweep me. When starting Platinum, I was very worried about this thing, but it turns out it's not actually that intimidating. In this case, I can just set up against it, use Drill Peck for the 1-hit, and from here I think I'm going to sweep. Maybe the Scizor is the only Pokemon that'll survive a hit. For maximum damage against it, I can use Waterfall, and so no, it does not survive. Last is Drapion. This thing isn't a bug type, so I go for Waterfall against it, and so yes, Aaron is an easy sweep. Bertha is next, and this one is a bit of a double-edged sword. Her ground type moves are super effective, but my water type moves are super effective against her. I decided to tank damage from the Whiscash. It looked like I would survive 2 hits, but it set up Sandstorm, which isn't affecting me because I'm a steel type. From there, the water type move is all I need, and I have an easy victory. Flint is a similar case to Bertha. He can do decent damage to me, but my moves are super effective. Things get a little bit problematic because I make contact with the Magmortar and its Flame Body burns Empoleon. Remember, Waterfall is a physical move, so its damage is going to be cut. That said, because of Swords Dance, I'm essentially doing regular damage here, and because I'm so over-leveled, I'm still able to win. Before Lucian, I realized that I have more rare candies, so I might as well use them now and boost Empoleon up to level 82. Turn 1, I set up and Mr. Mime establishes Reflect. I used Brick Break just to break the Reflect so that I could do good damage to all of his other Pokemon. Following that, Drill Peck gets the knockout, he sends in Gallade, and of course this flying type move is still the right choice here. From there, the Alakazam is a 1-hit, he sends in Bronzong. This is by far his most offensive Pokemon. I misclick using Drill Peck. It does so little, but on the next turn I use Brick Break and knock it out. Last is Espeon, but of course it doesn't stand a chance, so with that, Empoleon has made it to Cynthia. As was the case with the other 2 starters, I can set up against her lead Spiritomb because it isn't that offensively potent. Following that, I use Waterfall and knock it out in 1 hit. With +6 attack, I assume I'm going to sweep. Garchomp is a 1-hit, Lucario is a 1-hit, Togekiss is a 1-hit, Roserade is a 1-hit, and that leads me to her final Pokemon, Milotic. I go for Drill Peck, and it goes down. So Empoleon clocks in with a final time of 3 hours, 9 minutes, and 43 seconds with 10 resets at level 83. This is a game time of 8 hours and 30 minutes. This result is significantly faster than Torterra's finish time, and just a little bit slower than Infernape's. Of course, Infernape had more resets, so potentially there's more room to optimize it. That being said, I think I bled way more time with Empoleon. As I went back and did preliminary edits for these videos, as well as doing all of the voiceover, I realized just how many small areas could be improved. I could preemptively over-level for Gardenia, and then go into it with a better strategy utilizing Torrent. I could also pick up the Earthquake TM and use it right away, giving Empoleon significantly better ground-type damage. Not to mention the fact that that would have prevented a reset against Volkner at the end of the game. I could have also used my rare candies before Cyrus in the distortion world and had Rock Slide on my moveset. After all, like Speedrunner said, all of his Pokemon are weak to rock-type moves. Still, I'm very new to Generation 4, and I'm overall quite happy with today's results. If I went back and did these right now, I would predict that Empoleon would still be slightly slower than Infernape, just because of the time that it loses early on into the game training for the second gym. I think that's the thing that really gives Infernape the edge in the playthrough, although potentially Fantina could delay it more, and that might end up being the factor that would give Empoleon a slightly better time. Either way, these two are very close to each other. That said, Torterra is definitely the worst of the three. The combination of slow speed and a double weakness to ice-type moves makes Candice very brutal. Of course, like I mentioned in the Torterra video, I could have used the Quick Claw, and when I go back to do Torterra again, that's how I'll play it. I'm just finishing up the edit for this video, so I'm going to add a small section to the ending here to talk about your comments from my Torterra video. Thank you so much for catching a bunch of glitches that I didn't see while filming it and didn't mention during the video. I'm not going to go through these one by one right now because most of them have been fixed in the current version of my software. They probably will still show up in the videos over the next week, but starting in 2024 they should be eliminated. I also want to make some corrections based on mechanics that I got wrong. So number 1, fog does not lower your accuracy by 1 stage. Instead, it modifies your move's accuracy by 40%. To do this, it multiplies your current move's accuracy with 3/5. Also, Blizzard does still bypass accuracy checks when snow or hail is on the field. One other thing I want to clear up with Torterra specifically, I did mention it in this video, a lot of the moves are using their current base powers, so some people commented saying Bullet Seed is better than Razor Leaf, but that's not the case because in Generation 3 and Generation 4, Bullet Seed has a base power of 10 instead of 25. Starting in Generation 5 is when it got its major buff, and then yes, it is better than Razor Leaf in almost every scenario. Also, I just want to say I really appreciate how all of you framed this feedback. It could have come off really mean or accusatory, but you all just were like, hey, you made a mistake, maybe you should fix it. So yeah, here I am. That's what I'm doing. Thanks for being an awesome community. I really appreciate each and every one of you. So this concludes the starters in Pokemon Platinum, but we still have a long way to go. Tomorrow, I'm going to play the Luxray line. It feels sort of like an honorary starter in these games. And then the following day, I will play the other honorary starter. Of course, it is Staraptor. I hope you're enjoying Daily December. We are getting very close to the end now. As I've mentioned in some previous videos, I will be taking the entire month of January off from produced releases, but I will be streaming, so check those out whenever they happen. I'm probably going to re-rank a bunch of Pokemon in Yellow version. If you support me through YouTube memberships or on Patreon, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you tomorrow.